Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave, and today we have DM Insomnia in the house. How are you doing today,
Woo!
sir?
Doing wonderful up late.
Yeah. You're telling me. Thanks for coming on. I know you're coming off working a third shift, so we're gonna get you in rare form. Maybe a little sleep deprived, a little punchy. Anything can happen. So
Oh,
you're a community member, a crafter.
mini
You like to make
painter.
things, and you're trying to
Yep.
tell me like an interesting story how you got into the crafting aspect of
Yeah.
gaming.
I mean, it started way back, a few years ago. Um, just making little stuff for my home games. And buddy turned me onto a couple YouTube videos by a guy, uh, DM Scotty, and started following him, and then a few others, DMG Info, and a couple other guys, and then I found him on Facebook and got to know him, and so repping old school today.
Yeah, nice.
um, you know, and then that grew big, and watching some of the people that I got to become really good friends with get huge. I mean, some of them travel all over the world. Well, pre-COVID, traveled all over the world doing some really cool, you know, stuff overseas, and it's kind of cool to see and know that I was there, when they first got started, and like to hope I helped a little bit, kept them motivated.
Yeah,
But
you tell me in the beginning, like in your own games, you were, you'd be gaming and be like, this print can of Pringles, this
oh
is the
yeah,
Wizard's Tower.
I mean compared to what people are making now, but literally, yeah, just not even a tower made out of a Pringles can.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
sometimes it still had the chips in it,
Uh-huh.
and then we'd have like a deck of cards and then a shoebox, and that was our terrain. We didn't even always have minis. A lot of times it was, okay, this lighter is my fighter,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think there was one game where we all had different colored big lighters, and so we all just remembered what color we were, and drew the dungeon master was drawing the grid as he went, and I mean it was as ghetto as you can possibly get, and
That's some down and dirty D&D right there.
oh yeah,
Which that's like just speaks to the hobby where it's really great that, you can be anywhere from just straight up theater of the mind, no physical representation at the table at all, to, you know, full on Dwarven Forge, fully painted minis and,
yeah,
over the top terrain. And, you
oh
were
yeah,
kind of, saying that like when you started, you're like, hey, we should do this stuff at our table. And your table was like, hey, that's a lot of money.
oh
And then you're
oh
like,
yeah.
well, we got things laying around here. Let's just throw that on the table.
I mean, we were broke. I mean, so I think out of the six of us that gamed, two of us had jobs,
Yeah.
and then getting hooked on DM Scotty and watching him build stuff out of cardboard, and Gareth was using pizza boxes, and I'm like, we eat pizza, we got boxes, we got tape, we got glue, paint's cheap, okay, we can do this, and now it's progressing to the point where I'm basically just doing experimental crafting just to see if I can make stuff work. You know,
Yeah, I remember like one of the things that makes an appearance at our table quite often in different ways. I don't actually know what they're called. We just call them pizza tables, right?
I think that's
The
actually the actual name.
Oh,
The
well, that works then. Because you order pizza and you get a couple of them anyway,
yeah,
and it's like so we would just save them and we just have like Ted's got in his basement somewhere just like stacks of them, right? And they work great for a couple of different things. We'd use them for straight up tables. You throw them down as tables, or we would use them for flying characters or monsters.
oh yeah, to elevate them.
Yeah, use them to
Okay,
and really you can stack them so it's like whether you wanted to do 5 feet, 10 feet, or whatever increment, you could say each one of them represented that. It was just an
right.
easy way to visually go, okay, that's
Yeah,
what that is.
I remember I used to use the when you get the box for your dice, you
Yeah.
use the clear stacks.
Oh yeah. We've used those in the past as well.
Because some of the old ones that we used to get, the plastic would actually clip to the top of the other plastic. I think it was
Yes.
just a weird design, and so it was kind of cool because it was a little more stable,
Yeah.
and it worked out pretty good until the cats decided that it was a fun toy to bat across the room.
Yeah, cats have that effect, but you know what? Nothing was going to save that. I don't think.
No,
I don't think there's an elevator out there for your minis that's going to survive a full on cat attack.
no. At that point, it's just a TPK.
Yeah, yeah. A new foe has entered the combat.
Tarrasque is fluffy and full of fur, and
Yeah,
yeah.
probably
Oh,
far more vicious than the 5e Tarrasque too.
oh yeah, yeah. That thing's a kitten in comparison. So,
Yeah. So what is that? So what is one of the more ambitious builds you've done?
um, probably a tavern I built for a buddy of mine. He he was a commercial fisherman, and so but he liked to go out and be able to play D&D on the boat with a couple of guys. So I went out and I bought one of the really gigantic tackle boxes that
Mm.
it's like it opens and opens and then opens some more, and gutted it and basically built a tavern with each layer being another floor of the tavern. And so it fully closed up. It would hold minis and furniture and dice and rolled up pieces of paper and all that. And it was still a tackle box. But when you opened it up, it's a fully playable tavern.
Oh, that's pretty cool. The tavern
Uh,
to go.
Pretty much. And then there's one I'm working on where I basically want to have a big set piece that's got like the pond and a waterfall and all the places for the characters to fight and be all tactical. But I want it to have a real running, working waterfall. So that's the next one is a completely working piece of tabletop terrain with a working waterfall.
Water features, nice. Oh, huh, the cats will love that. Next thing you know, Miss
Oh yeah.
Battle, the cat is drinking from your water feature.
Hey, it's just another hazard.
So when do you find now during these the time of the apocalypse that your gaming more or less are the same?
Less. Part of it is just my style of play is
Mm.
very off the cuff. I make a lot of stuff up as I go, very little prep time, um, and with doing it online, especially I mean, I bought Fantasy Grounds. I've got the whole ultimate package, all the books and all that. But maps you have to prep to where the characters can work on them, unless you're, you know, not planning on using miniatures within the system. But there's also stuff that I've created for a homebrew that Fantasy Grounds just doesn't support. So the only other option I would have would be to do like Google Hangouts, try and have multiple cameras and show all the different stuff that way. I mean, I've ran several one shots where I've been playtesting stuff,
Mhm.
but that's just more work. That's not like hanging out and just having a fun game. That's me making notes about what works, what doesn't, what needs to tweak.
Yeah.
I don't really count that as sitting down and having fun at the table.
Yeah, so our last session, Ted actually set up an extra camera that he used for the terrain. And like, so our style when we do use mini and terrains is kind of like theater of the mind, and then, oh, here's a complex combat or encounter.
Right.
So we'll set that up on the table. And with us going online with all of our gaming, it's just been us, theater of the mind. But so like we've each been like experimenting with different things. Like I've experimented with using um Dungeon Fog, and they basically have a feature where you can kind of like share the map with your players, and I don't even use it the way they kind of intend it, where like you could share it with them, each of them, and they could have a token and do their thing. I just create the extra as a player, and screen share that, and then it's like you
Okay.
can do like a room by room fog of war, so that I can just kind of like reveal the map to them as they go. And then Ted has been experimenting with adding, he sets up a second laptop,
Okay.
and he does his terrain that he would normally do, and just has that on that one camera, so that we can just do that.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not the same, because we've done our home group has also always been in person, but
Yeah.
we've kind of like have found ways to adapt, and we've also done a lot of online gaming.
Right.
But we've never really used the VTTs as DMs. We've played games with them. I ran a small mini series on Saver Dice using a VTT. But for the most part, we're theater of the mind DMs anyway. So we'll just like set up a Zoom call, a Discord call,
Yeah.
Google call, whatever, and just do it that way. I mean, gaming online is just one of those things. It could be as simple or as complex as you want, just like at the table.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, I love good theater of the mind to a point. I mean, like if it's a simple tavern brawl or okay, pretty straightforward battle, I'm all for it. But I've played with some people. They're like, they need the detail. They got to get all tactical and have to. They want the map and the minis and the ranges. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, what are you trying to do? Oh, okay, roll.
Yeah.
Let's see if it works.
I like that as well. Sometimes my concern with is like too much stuff at the table is like, does that lock the DM and the players into doing what's there?
Yeah.
I know a lot of the DMs say no, but I'm still like, I don't know. You put a lot of work into that. I know I would feel a certain way if I spent like 4 hours on a build,
Yeah.
and the
And
players
they
are
never
like,
got
nah.
there.
Yeah, they're like, nah, we're not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm running, I always try to have at least 5 things prepped. They may only use one of them. Great. That's one, 4
Yeah.
less I've got to prep next time. But that way they get the feeling, oh, it's all up to us. We're not being railroaded at all. When in reality, it's just I'm offering them one of 5 splits and giving them a choice, which leads to a lot more prep time and what could happen and should happen. But either way, I mean, sitting there, one of my favorite sessions we played, they never left the tavern for 4 hours. It was all just interactions with different characters coming in and out, different hooks I was trying to give to them, and so they're making notes on what they wanted to do. But literally, I don't think they left the tavern at all.
Yeah, I mean that stuff can happen for sure, and there's nothing wrong with it. It can actually be fun. I mean, you're just it's all social engagement, role playing back and
Oh
forth.
yeah,
I know. Ted was saying like the Dawnbringers game, like they did like one room like the whole session, in a dungeon. They never moved forward. Because of everything else that was going on.
yeah. And that's with Jake. That's with Jake, right?
Yeah, from
Yeah, okay.
mini domain terrain, and we can we've definitely had those sessions where it's all social interactions and role playing, and barely any dice even get touched that session, and and that's one of the cool things about the game as well is you can just do it however you want.
Oh, yeah.
It can be there's so many different ways to play this game. Before we got started, we were talking about Critical Role a little bit,
Yeah.
and I really like the way Matt does terrain. Is
Oh,
like
yeah.
where he has it like pre-set up on like a piece of
That big board he brings out.
yeah, and it's like boom, here's the scene.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that would be like the best way I think to run it, because he does a lot is really theater of the mind, and it's just so many different engagements and even potential combat, but it's not until that one moment, that you can tell he's been working up to,
Yeah,
is just like presented by Dwarven Forge.
yeah. But on the plus side too, though, like it's not in the game until it's in the game.
Yeah.
So, like your players aren't going to think about it, necessarily. And also, kind of as the DM, if you never get to that moment, it's not like it's staring you in the face the whole time either.
Oh yeah.
So it's a little bit easier to, kind of go with what's going on.
Yeah. Kind of wonder how fun it would be to do that virtually. Like have a camera set up strictly for your terrain,
Yeah.
and then you've got all the miniatures and they just, okay, I want to go there. Okay. And you do all the movement.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Ted did.
Okay.
And he would just, and I think he had two different builds that he used. I don't know if he had them both set up and had to switch them out, or if you had to switch them out but it was just turn the one camera on and off.
Right.
And it's not there until it's there. Kind of the same kind of deal, which seems to work out pretty well for our game.
Cool.
So do you find yourself DMing more or playing more?
I mean, it used to be 50-50, but here lately, at least the last couple of years, I'd say primarily DMing. But a lot of that is due to my choice.
Okay.
It's just I've gotten comfortable enough because I'm usually an extreme introvert where I'll be the quiet guy playing the rogue in the back. But I've gotten to a point where I'm comfortable enough in what I'm doing to actually really enjoy running it. And just kind of loving the fact that I know it well enough to let them go off the rails and not seem like it's gone off the rails. So it makes it. She will sip. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was the fun thing for me is just letting them run wild, and kind of developing a style of how I play.
Yeah.
It's very cinematic stylings. I mean, you think back to like the original Conan movies, how everything was, the battles were huge and people were jumping off of stuff and setting up elaborate traps. And, that's that's a feeling I want when I'm running a game. And so I'll let them try pretty much anything. If you want to jump off a 150-foot cliff and try to put your sword through the dragon's skull, go for it. Let's see your rolls.
Yeah.
But if you miss, there's going to be consequences.
Right. If you hit, there's might be consequences.
Well, yeah. But the chances of you putting a sword through a dragon's skull from that height, yeah, you got to hit it. And I've had people try it. I had one guy succeed, and it was an amazing moment. And a few games later, they decided to try it. I can't remember why they were jumping off the cliff.
Because it worked the first time.
Yeah, and they failed. And so I basically said, okay, I want you to make either an athletics or acrobatics check just to see how you're going to hit the ground.
Yeah.
1. And so he basically landed belly flop with the sword underneath him. And so I said, so I want you to roll a constitution check against, and I rolled like mad damage against that.
Yeah.
Just to see if you survive. Nope.
Yeah, I would definitely be like, I would just do the max falling damage and with if you're saying, hey, there's a potential you can impale yourself, then maybe weapon damage.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he was about he was like 150, 200 feet up.
Yeah, that's 20
swan dived. And they were like level 7.
Yeah.
So
now,
like, okay,
against a foe, I guess what I probably would do, I would do the same thing, but like you'd be able to do your weapon damage and the fall damage to the foe. If you successfully pull it off, you would automatically take half damage. They're definitely probably going to take some damage, and then maybe give them a checkup beyond that to reduce the damage again. But yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I like when players try to do something, and it's going to have consequences.
Yeah, I mean, like I had one of my favorite favorite characters a buddy of mine had was a sorcerer, and his favorite spell was magic missile because he never missed. But he played it like he was a gunslinger from the old west, and so that's how he fired the magic missiles with little gun hands, and it was like pew pew pew, and he'd roll damage. And he had the trench coat, the hat. He treated his guy like a cowboy, but it was awesome. I mean, I've never imagined a green skinned tiefling cowboy, but it was fun.
Magic missile is a great spell when you're terrible at rolling dice.
Yeah, I think the first time I ever rolled a fireball, it was almost all ones. So
yeah, so like if the D20 is not kind to you, and your DM tends to pass your saves, like magic missile is good. I've upcasted magic missile because I just couldn't damage something. So I think I upcasted magic missile to a 9th level spell. Like, you know what? Or spell slot, just eat a bunch of force damage then.
Yeah.
But it was still only like 45 points of damage. So it wasn't even like that much for the level spell slot for the resource expended.
Yeah, but that's a lot of missiles coming at you.
Yeah, it looks good anyway. It looks like one of the old space cartoons, right?
Oh, like from a Gundam or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
It looks like that, but it looks far more impressive than it actually ends up being.
Very true.
But on the plus side, very few things resist force damage.
Yeah, that's true. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So.
Helm horrors are immune to force damage.
Okay.
That's also why I love using them because of that. So you generally play homebrew or published stuff?
I have actually never ran a published adventure in my life. I'll use parts for my own stuff, but 99% of everything I ran homebrew. Races, a couple of classes. I've got a School of Magic I'm working on. An entire world that I'm putting together, just to suit my play style, and because I have a insane amount of random knowledge from a bunch of movies I've watched and books I've read that I think would be cool to put into a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we were primary homebrewers ourselves. I mean, in 5e, I'm just now going through my first like published adventures as a player because someone else has run them, which I mean is a lot of fun, especially when you have DMs that kind of take that stuff and make it their own.
Yeah.
But as someone who DMs and runs games, I tend to run homebrew. Just because for some reason, I also think it's easier to a certain extent.
I believe, I mean, there's part of running a published adventure that is almost more intimidating, I think, because if you don't present it right, they're not going to get where the adventure needs them to go.
Also, there's more baggage, right? Like, if you're running an adventure in, say, the Forgotten Realms, everybody knows the Forgotten Realms, and when you start deviating from, what is the recognized canon or lore, you're going to get players. They're going to be like, actually, this happens, and this is what it is. And so I think, like, even if you're going to run that kind of stuff, you need to, like, have a disclaimer at the beginning, be like, yeah, it's Forgotten Realms, but it's my Forgotten Realms.
It's the really Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
I think like I ran parts of like Mines of Phandelver and put it into a campaign, but changed the name and but used the map. And so I guess I used the locations for it and the same general storyline, but really that's about it. I didn't use any of the characters that actually came with the adventure. And that was just because I think the map for the mines itself was kind of cool.
Oh yeah. It did. I mean, it was a great box set in the sense that there was a lot of content and
Yeah.
you got a lot for like if you got it from Amazon, it was like $15, I think. So for that price, so you got a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah. I think I paid like $9 at a garage sale.
Oh, even better.
it it was missing one of the booklets, which I think is why I didn't use half the stuff.
Oh,
But
that'll do it every
I was able
time.
to find that online. So, but no, I mean it was fun, and I don't um, I like taking stuff that and paying tribute to the people that have put the stuff out there, and still using it. Um, but it's just I I can't bring myself to try and stick to a script.
Yeah.
I love to ad lib too much. It's all just where's it going to go?
Well, I feel like as a GM, whether you want to ad lib or not, at some point you end up having to, right?
Oh
Just
yeah,
because that's what D&D is, right? The players are going to go in unexpected directions. There's going to be twists. There's going to be turns. And before you know it, that's how I became an improv GM
right.
because I used to write these like elaborate gaming, I don't know, manuscripts. It looked like I would write it like I was like the modules I read. I would write my own flavor text and all the details, and then you'd have players show up, and then they're like, oh, we're not doing this. We're going to do something else instead, and you're like, oh, okay. They get rid of this out of the way. And
Yep.
I just got to a certain point, like, why am I writing all of this?
Yeah.
And I was like, from there, it kind of evolved or devolved, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like when I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to run. I know the starting point,
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, so far that in one that I've been running, I know that the big main bad guy, he's actually my version of a lich. I reskin a lot. So it's where he's been. And so they've got certain clues to figure out how to beat him. But where are they going to go next? So I think of, okay, well, I know they're going to need a tavern. They're going to need a wizard's tower. They're going to need a cave system. They're probably going to go to a town to do some buying and healing up. Okay, so that's what I got to prep. So it doesn't even matter really what direction they go in. I can always put what they need as far as where I want to get them to be in front of them. And that's actually how I created 80% of the map I'm using, is simply by placing stuff in front of where they went. And they think it's all fully prepped. I'm flying by the seat of my pants, but it worked.
yeah. So that's where Sandbox Prep is actually really good, right? Where it's just like you're putting together the pieces in the region, the area, the world, and they
Yeah.
can go to it at any time, and it's ready. I think I think that kind of prep is a good investment in time, especially too if you run a lot of campaigns in the same area. So it's like even if you don't use it today or with this group, you might use it, for the next campaign, right?
Right.
Or you're running for this group and you're able to pull something from a previous campaign. You've either used it already or it never got used, but it's still there, and you can just drop that in because, like you said, oh, I needed a cavern system, but either they never went there or they did, but this group's going there as well. And when you can kind of take that and go, oh, well, what happened since the last group went through there? And did the last group do anything that has changed it, right?
Yep.
So if it happens to be that the last group is actually the same group, right, but with different characters or whatever, then you end up with these little Easter eggs that are in there that players really dig and are like, oh wow, we did that. It's different because we ran through here before.
Yep.
and maybe the encounters are different monsters are there, it's a different objective, but the location's the same. So I feel like players really appreciate that kind of stuff.
That actually, the whole second, like second generation characters, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
Their second is leads itself to some fun stuff as well.
When
Was
you say
running.
second generation, you mean
All right,
like
so same
legacy
players,
characters,
like
legacy
say
characters, or just
no,
a
but
different group with the same players?
yeah, so same players, different characters, but you still got all their first, the other characters, the first characters they used. One of the first campaigns I ran, we went from level 1 to 9 before we all ended up going on hiatus and ending the campaign. And so we ended it with all of their characters deciding to sign up to be part of the King's Guard and basically retire into the King's service. So we all got back together, I think it was like 6-7 months later, with a new group of characters in the same world. And their players at that time were murder hobos. They were slaughtering entire villages of goblins, and if anyone looked like an orc, they were automatically going to die. So they started hearing rumors of these hunters that were chasing them, following them from place to place, catching up to them. And they were only like level maybe third, fourth level at this point, when their original characters who were in service to the king, who were 9th, 10th level at this point, were chasing them throughout the kingdom to put a stop to them. And when they realized that, they looked at me like I'd grown a second head. It was so much fun, because then all of a sudden those characters had access to the best armor, the best weapons, the best equipment, everything. And well, got to put an end to the murder hobos, right? So
did that curtail their murder hoboing, or did they begin plotting their own deaths?
they eventually, we talked it over, and they said, can we go out in a blaze of glory at the hands of our old characters, but then take over our old characters and report back to the king and continue that campaign? So it took a little convincing, but I was like, okay, we can do that. And so it was kind of a cool transition that they died at the hands of the characters they became again.
Yeah.
But it's cool because then we were able to move along in the campaign that I'd originally created. So
that's it. The thing I find the most impressive about all of that was actually getting back to an old campaign that was stopped.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is the very main bad guy, the Lich, essentially, was one of my original characters from when I started playing.
Okay.
One of the things I'm a big fan of, and they did away, as far as I know, they did away with it in 5e, because I haven't seen anything about it. Templates.
Like there are templates, but there's not many.
But remember when you used to be able to take a human fighter and apply just a half dragon template to it? Boom, you got a half dragon fighter, right? Or a vampire.
Actually, half dragon is one of the few templates that is left. It's weird, like they don't really use them, and they're not like as impactful as they were. I wonder why they went away from that desigin.
I don't know. It was so.
Seems
so
like
simple,
I missed an opportunity to ask about that.
Get him back.
Yeah. Hey, I forgot a question.
Yeah, but that's one of the things I still use is I'm creating templates for my homebrew stuff. And so my original character, I made it from level 1 all the way to like level 17 as a wizard.
Yeah.
And it was not easy. I really I think I actually had to be brought back to life once. And when we ended that campaign, we were victorious and it was all great. And so when I started gaming and running, I just took my original character and applied a lich template to him, and then reskinned a few things, retooled it for the way I wanted it, and he became the big bad evil guy. And so he's very twisted individual. He likes making like Frankenstein monsters out of really odd blends of creatures,
Uh,
like an orc with beholder stalks and all that
sounds
kind of
like
stuff.
Ted to me, to be honest.
Woohoo! I'll take that as a compliment.
You created Ted. So Joe has a question I want to address real quick. How much
Yeah.
detail is too much detail? I think that's really a very personal question. Like, there isn't really a right or wrong answer. It's when people ask how much prep should I do, like I have kind of like a cheesy answer, and it's like you should do as much prep as you feel you need to do to feel comfortable and confident in running the game, and that's going to be different for everyone, and it can even change session to session. And as you get more comfortable with a particular group of players,
Yeah.
like I find if you get players that try to do a lot of stuff in a game, that the prep that you make isn't becomes less relevant because they're just going to go do stuff, and it may not be
Yeah.
the stuff that you put out there.
Yeah.
So it can be kind of helpful. Um,
Yeah. I think it would also, yeah, like you say, it depends on the group you're with. But it depends on the situation. I mean, if they're saying I'm going to go shopping for supplies, I'm not going to go into a whole long, 2 or 3 hour shopping spree. Just send me a list of what you want, and I'll tell you how much gold it's going to cost. But if they're sneaking into some guy's castle to steal a relic, I'm going to go into some really extreme detail
yeah.
because it's stuff they need to know. So the level of detail for me is very situational. I'm not going to tell them how many nose hairs the king has, but I might tell them, if they roll properly or their passive perception's good enough, hey, you notice that the color on this carpet is different from this one, and how many paintings are on each wall. Because it's something that could potentially help or hinder them in what they're doing.
Well, also like that makes me think of something that should probably that can come up like in a session 0 too, and I've seen it happen from time to enough times that actually it might be because there is a certain play style where players want the shopping montage. They want to shop
True.
and they want to do it. And sometimes some GMs just aren't into that, right? Or some players might not be into that. That might be like an agreed upon thing when you get into the game. Be like, where does shopping fall into this? Because I hate shopping in real life and in fantasy life, and I don't want to role play that.
If they want to, if it's basic supplies,
Yeah,
that's shopping, and that's just to give me a list. If
yeah,
they're like serious, they're looking for like arcane objects, or they want special armor made. That's a whole different kind of shopping. That's an adventure on itself.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure we'll do that, But I'm not gonna not gonna game out. Okay, they're gonna go to the 3 different stores to get paper, another one to get ink. Oh, I've got to go get, this. Haggling can be fun, role playing. I agree, Joe. But there are times
Yeah.
when they're doing it simply because they know what's coming and they don't want to get to it. I've had groups do that. They would literally do everything they could to put off, because everything leading up to that point, they know there's a big fight coming, and they don't think they're prepared.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's literally, the characters would probably think they're prepared, but the players have been rolling like garbage, and they don't want to go into combat with bad juju on their dice. And I'll make them do it.
Yeah.
Oh, you really want? Okay, what are you shopping for? Okay, 20 gold. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, Ted recently ran for the fans, and like the adventure happens in a town, and they were like high level adventurers. So he's like, look, you can have these magic. This is the magic items you can have. This is the amount of starting gold you have, and if it's like mundane equipment, you just have it. And it's
Right.
like they got there, and the first thing they wanted to do is shop, and it's like. And he could just not get them out of the tavern or from shopping, and to go through the adventure. And that's a play style, and it's a legitimate play style, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh,
It
yeah.
may not be a great play style in a one shot, right? When you have a limited time to get through it, and it may not be a great play style for certain GMs or certain player mixes. And that's why
Yeah.
it's always important to try and figure out like the right table for you, because if like that's the kind of game you want to play but no one else wants to play that game, or you have a GM that doesn't want to run that game, then it's a bad matchup. So
Yeah. I
like
mean, like I was telling you before, most of what I've been running for the last few years has been one shots.
yeah.
Um, and especially lately with COVID, it's all been one shots. I don't think I've actually been a part of an actual campaign since before March.
Yeah.
And so literally there's not, I've got these guys for 4, maybe 5 hours tops. It's got to get this stuff in so I can play test material so I can see if it's going to work. Not like back in the day when I was going to convention and running a game for 24 or so hours straight.
Well, even at a convention, you can't always do that either, because like they're going to use that table, right? Like
Well,
you can,
like,
I mean, you can pick up and go somewhere else and keep playing,
oh yeah,
but
the last convention I went to was up in Seattle.
yeah,
And this was 8 or 9 years ago, probably. And so I had the table. They didn't have anyone to play Star Wars. I can't remember who made it, what when we were running. And I was like, I'll do it. I've played it before. I can run a game, whatever. Again, system and not, I'm confident I can run a game. So they give me the table for, it was like 6 hours. And so 6 hours runs by, we're having fun, and they come and tell me that the guy who had booked the table next no-showed. Do I want the table for another 6 hours? So like half the players had to go, but I had more people wanting to play. So we just swapped people through and kept going.
Oh yeah.
I ended up running for almost 36 hours in a row with just like bathroom breaks.
Yeah.
All one continuous Star Wars game. And the whole point of the whole campaign ended up being they had to go from basically one end of the galaxy to the other, past a bunch of blockades, pick up sacred spices and herbs for this huge religious thing, and bring it back.
Is that just code for weed?
Oh yeah, they had they had a whole cargo space full of weed, and one of their engineers like completely flubbed some. I made him have to repair something, or else the spices would go bad, and he completely, like, essentially critical fail and started a fire in the cargo hold. And so the only person who didn't have to roll to see if they got stoned was the droid. And so all of them failed.
It, so it was fine.
Oh yeah, but so they basically end up getting back to the planet. The things completely hotbox the ship. So they open up the doors and smoke's billowing out, and there's no sacred stuff.
It sounds like instead of playing Star Wars, you played Spaceballs.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's pretty much what it devolved into.
That's what happens when you play beyond that initial 12 hours. Like,
you get loopy, very loopy when it's literally all energy drinks and pizza.
Yeah.
And that's, you got kind of lose it.
At a certain point, they start setting up the IVs so you can get your monsters intravenously.
Yeah. But I mean, it was probably one of the coolest times I've had. Because in that whole time period, I probably went through like 20 or 30 players, but I only had 6 at a time. But the way that it managed to swap them out was really organic. Like, we'd stop at a planet and someone would have to go, but someone else would want to come in and play a similar type character. So it's like, oh, this guy's contract was up, so we hired somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think the only one who played consistently the whole time was a buddy of mine who was playing the ship's captain. And he really helped that whole thing along. So, but nowadays, you're lucky to get, like I said, 4, maybe 5, 6 hours if they really like you. And long trip for a short point. But, I mean, sometimes you don't have time to shop.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like, that's a consideration.
I'd love to be a part of like a long running campaign, just to have that consistency. Be able to
I
watch
wonder.
your
I
character
wonder what the
grow.
spike in player shopping has been since the start of Critical Role. I played
I
Critical
don't
Role for
know.
all the shopping.
Oh, their shopping is epic.
Yeah,
Some of the odd characters that Matt comes up with to be the shopkeepers.
yeah. It makes it great.
And what I'm wondering is how many people have Pumat in their game?
Probably a bunch. I
You
mean,
know, because he's. I mean, that's
before the end times set in, I believe I saw like a bunch of cosplayers that were all cosplaying Pumont.
well. What's funny is when he started doing the voice, I immediately thought of Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
You know, all right, all right, all right. You know,
Well, you know too,
so
like so it's weird with 5e and Furbolgs. Furbolgs were very, very different.
oh, they
It
were actual giants.
yeah, they were giants. And they not only were they giants, they were like forest Vikings giants, kind of, is what they made me think of. I mean, the
Right,
Monster Manual 2, I think, for AD&D, the
right.
cover was a Furbolg.
Big, vicious, mean looking. Now they're humanoid cows, basically.
Kind of and they.
Yeah,
Yeah. They are a bit different. Verbeegs were another thing that were a lot different too in second edition as well. So
yep,
it's fine. I mean, the game changes, grows, evolves,
yeah.
uh, and now they are. Well, they're not really cow people, but
I don't know. Every picture I've seen, they look like humanoid cows, man.
they've got they've got a
The
very
floppy
certain look.
ears.
Yeah,
You know,
but they don't have the
but
horns. They're not like
no, didn't say they were bulls.
they're like
But
I don't know.
yeah, but I mean, just that. I don't know.
The
Not what I
face.
remembered. Because you even read through like some of the novels, and Furbolgs were feared.
Yeah.
If
Now
they knew
you
one
want to
was
just hug
around,
them.
yeah. Oh, let's have some tea and just relax.
Oh, you know what they kind of
You
make
know?
me think of? They make me think of Fraggle Rock, the king and his son and the wife. I forget. I don't even remember what they were
I
called.
don't remember. I know. I can picture it.
Yeah,
But yeah.
it makes me think
But,
of them for some reason.
but I mean, and that's one thing. Like, I almost think it's like just they decided, oh, we're gonna reskin this. Keep the name, change a bunch of stuff, and make it our own thing or a different thing.
Yeah,
Maybe they had too many giants. I don't know, but I love taking stuff.
heresy. Too many giants. You can never have too many giants. Although a world kind of like with a ton of giants in it would be kind of odd anyway when you think of it.
Yeah.
Although I feel like they've shrunk our giants a little bit compared to previous editions. All the monsters got
Shrunk
shrunk.
down.
Yeah.
Didn't they even do away with like an entire size category?
Oh yeah, there used to be colossal, and I think there might have been one beyond that as well. Titanic.
Yeah, because I remember there used to be a size comparison chart in one of the old books,
Yeah.
and it had like humans, and then it went up to like these things that took up like the whole other page.
Although the minis are getting bigger again.
Well, because I remember when I first started painting minis, the 28 millimeter was considered from bottom of the feet to top of the head,
Uh,
and now it's from the bottom of the feet to the eyes.
oh
And
really?
yeah, and so, but they've definitely gotten bigger. I think part of it is just because they want to be able to pack more detail in there to kill us when we're painting them.
Well, so I feel like like just in general, like certain monsters you look at from previous editions, and they were just the same monster, but like it just was bigger.
Yeah,
Like the 5e miniature that just has disappointed me the most uh is definitely the Tiamat. I'm
oh,
like, that is smaller than the dragons. So
I'm the very first picture I ever saw of Tiamat was like huge. I mean,
yeah.
it was very, this is a god. because it showed other dragons flying around her, and they looked like freaking hummingbirds. And I don't remember who painted the picture, but it was epic.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine just got the miniature from Reaper, and he's got also the I think it's the ancient red dragon mini, and they're almost the same size.
Oh yeah. Well, the Reaper ones are bigger. They're not as bad. The ones from Watts, they've shrunk a lot.
I mean, but
recently, right? They just started, like, WizKids and D&D just started putting out a bunch of minis that are much bigger. Like there's the Purple Worm that's been out, and now I just saw the Purple Worm. I don't know if it's out yet or if it's coming out, where like the new Purple Worm could slurp the old Purple Worm up like it was spaghetti.
Nice.
So, so it's
back
like
to
huge
epic monsters.
Which, like, I mean, if you're gonna go through the trouble of making the minis, might as well make them.
Oh yeah.
I just attribute it to the cost of plastic, right?
Yeah.
And D&D being cheap, and not wanting to put the money into it, or maybe they're worried people won't buy them, that there's not enough demand. I don't know, but I feel like we're in an era with RPGs where people are willing to spend more on them. I mean, Monty Cook Games put out a $300 game that people bought, and Beatles and Grimm. They have like these luxury Cadillac adventure boxes now that, I mean, you can get them for $100, $500, a small mortgage, whatever. So like, I mean, it might not be for everybody, but definitely there's people out there that are spending and they're willing to pay for it.
Definitely.
Yeah. Gamma Squad 10, the Chardallan Dragon and the Sapphire Dragon minis are big. They've gotten bigger. And also the wingspan on that Sapphire Dragon makes it look a lot bigger, just the way the sculpt is, I feel like, and it looks good.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Like, I have very much been outspoken about my opinion of the Wizards of the Coast 5e minis, and also because, like, WizKids does them, right? And they also do Pathfinder, and the Pathfinder minis are awesome.
Oh yeah.
And it's
I love like their Pathfinder deep cuts.
Yeah. So like, clearly it's not WizKids.
Yeah.
It's clearly not WizKids that's the problem, because they're doing both lines.
Yeah.
So it's a cost thing somewhere. And then finally somewhere in on the D&D, they finally kind of got with the program and said, "Oh, let's fix this." I mean, Ted will do articles about the different minis, and at some point he was like, "Hey, do you want me to do a side by side?" And WizKids is like, "No, we must not cross the streams."
A buddy of mine got one of the resin 3D printers, found a file for the Tarask, upsized it, printed it out, put it all together to where what he thought was going to be realistic.
Yeah.
And from nose to the end of the tail, I think it was almost 2 feet long.
Oh wow!
To go along with 28 millimeter miniatures.
Yeah, so. The behemoth that was, I always forget the company that put that out. And it was like a third party answer to the Tarask, takes up 8 squares on the grid. Is a pretty, Ted's got a couple of those, and they're pretty impressive. They look pretty awesome. So Joe wants to know, what's your favorite dragon?
Oh, how did I know that question was going to come up?
That's when that's one we can just send out and be like, this one's going to get asked. Yeah.
It's kind of difficult. I really like playing the red dragons, mostly because they're very intelligent, and they're very, they will do what it takes. They'll trick you. And they'll kill you. And there's always something inherently vicious about a gigantic fire-breathing monster that can cast spells just as good as your wizard can.
Yeah, I'm always leery using dragons. They're just hard to give them the proper respect they deserve.
You read through lore with dragons, and there's always tales of them taking human form or humanoid form. to interact with people. But they don't really ever do that in D&D anymore.
No, they're kind of going away from that.
I put that back in there when I'm running a game. It's an inherent ability in any spell. Any dragon that has the ability to cast spells can assume humanoid form in my games. And it makes it so much more fun when you don't know if the guy that you're talking to in the bar is also the dragon you're going to fight later.
Yeah.
So
there's always that.
I love that suspense. It's kind of like the movie The Thing.
Yeah.
I play with some of that. It's like they don't know who could be, the infected, so to speak, who's working against them. And my son is playing that game Among Us, and he said I play it like that. That there's an imposter somewhere in the room, and you got to find him. Beyond that, I have no idea how the game works, but apparently it works. So, gold dragons are cool.
Yeah. I actually saw the other day on Twitter, one of the senators were talking about playing that game as a
way to reach the youth.
That, and also as like a fundraiser. I was like, that is actually a pretty cool idea.
He was talking about that earlier today, and said that her game went live and it was like within an hour, it was like 450,000 views or something.
That's
just
crazy.
An ungodly amount.
Like,
and I'm
that is like, that's some leadership getting it right, figuring out that, like. I also there's another thing that's either going to happen or going to happen. Another fundraiser using D&D for politics as well, which
that'd be fun.
We try not to get too political on here for the most part, but I just thought those things are kind of cool to see that, how like our hobby is reaching into these places.
Yeah. So I think we should do it. No more debates. What they do is they each get to pick two people, and we get like.
They grab their cabinets, right? Whoever the cabinet's going to be, and they have to run a game of D&D for them.
Or it's a head-to-head competition. You got your teams together. Get like Joe Magnello or something to run the game.
Yeah,
he's big enough to tell them to zip it. And they each get like 4 people, and their characters do battle. All the dice rolls are in the open. Loser goes away. You know. Just because sometimes I just get tired of them talk. I would rather watch them play D&D.
Yeah, that might be a way to go. We should just solve all of our conflicts from now on with D&D.
With a roll of the dice. I don't know
if it'll be great for civilization as a whole, but yeah, it'll be entertaining anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying the voting end of it. Let us still vote. I'm just saying debates because I don't want to hear them yak.
Yeah.
Because it takes up like 20% of the channels there are out there. All same thing.
Were they able to use that fireball spell creative enough or not?
Exactly.
How'd they really do with those diplomacy checks? So
I think he was cheating. He's got loaded dice.
Yeah, for sure, man. But we are coming up on the hour
already.
Yeah, it goes by pretty quick. And I've got to shoot videos today. Got to make the donuts.
And more stuff for me to watch later, man.
Yeah. So before we head on out, final words.
Final words. When you're making your games, take any inspiration you can get. Doesn't matter what genre you're watching or reading, there's gonna be something there that you can take away and put into your games. Just keep an eye open for it and be open to using it.
That is great advice, and it's worked its way into many of my games. And sometimes we end up with some really weird and strange things, and that's where they come from. And so that's where the magic happens as well. So until next time. Stay nerdy.
Have a good one, guys.